Wow.
All right. So hi everyone. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I am Liza Gentile, Assistant Director of Alumni Relations. So this program tonight is part of our JWU Connects program, which brings you all professional development opportunities as alumni. So I just wanted to introduce Dr. Michelle Rego, our moderator for this evening, who will get us started.
Hi everyone. Please call me Michelle. I know many of you were in my classroom, and I'm getting some professors, so that just makes me feel old. You can also go with Mimi. That's my nickname. Some of you probably knew that before. So we're going to have sort of a casual discussion. I'll introduce everyone quickly, but then they'll say a little bit about themselves, and we'll talk about some industry trends, sort of warm up, and then take some questions from the crowd and just see where it goes. Okay? So let me start. Let's see. We have Christopher Donnelly, who graduated in 1991 with his master's degree. Chris is a Senior Vice President of Brand Experience at Allen & Gerritsen. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, big round of applause for coming out here. Rob Erskine graduated in 2012. He's a Vice President already and Lead Creative Strategist for Hill Holiday. Welcome, Rob. Jennifer Perkins is also here. She graduated in 2000. She's now a Vice President of Marketing at Seven Bridges Genomics. Thank you, Jenny. And Ashley Vutech. Ashley graduated in 2012, and she's a Supervisor of Advertising Operations at Havas. Thank you so much to all of you. I know it is hard to take the time out of your day, but it's really important, and we're so happy that you did it. And so the first thing we're going to do is put you on the spot. I had asked you to think about if you created a 30-second spot for yourself, what would it be? So not so much your title, but what's it like to work where you work? What's a day in the life? What's your typical day's like? You can tell us whatever you want about your life, a little hobby, personal interest, up to you.
I'll get started. Sure. One of the things that I love about my job is that my day-to-day life at work is never the same. I am somebody that likes a lot of options in life in terms of whether I'm going to a live concert, I'm snowboarding or hiking or swimming in the ocean. At work, my day is never the same because of overseeing a marketing department. There's elements of media relations, investor relations, event marketing, marketing operations, demand generation, you name it, product strategy. Everything comes in waves, and it just gives me a lot of variety in what I'm doing.
Chris, what do you want to tell us?
I would just say some of the similarities would be your life as you know it is over, and everything that you plan to do that day is probably never going to happen because you're doing everything else that comes up as a fire drill or whatever.
Right.
I would say my day is varied. I travel a lot. The type of job I have is a little bit of, for the older people, Monty Hall from Let's Make a Deal, to younger people, MacGyver, troubleshooting and trying to do things with no budgets or 2 matchsticks or whatever it is. So it's always varied. A lot of conceptual thinking, a lot of troubleshooting. It's interesting. That's why I've been at it for a long time. Probably the grandpa on the esteemed panel, but it's fun and it's keeps it interesting.
Rob, tell us about your day.
Sure. I'm Rob Erskine. I head up creative technology at Hill Holiday for retail and healthcare programs. And that whole term, creative technology, is sort of intentionally ambiguous in that it's sort of a catch-all for problem solvers, people that can sort of do anything. So your MacGyver example was actually really catch-all. Solving problems for clients that don't have a very huge budget or they need something done very soon. So my day-to-day, is hopping from one client to another, sort of trying to help them where I can. And it's a lot of fun being in that sort of environment because I never know what I want to do when I walk in. I have a calendar, but everything gets sort of shuffled around by 9 a.m. So it's
we all agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ashley, how about your day?
My day looks kind of like a jumble of all of them. Never looks the same, and because I'm serving as a client lead for my team on the Fidelity Investments account, I kind of have to wear a lot of hats at all times, and I put out fires all day.
Do you have a green
So.
line to your office? No,
Yeah.
I just was
Wish I had an
curious.
office.
Oh,
but
okay.
Maybe someday.
You're gonna get there.
Okay.
Nobody has
A lot of
offices
companies
at
don't
our
even have
business.
offices
Yeah,
anymore.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
true, it's an
We don't
open
either.
work
Yes.
environment.
Yeah, we don't either. Even
I'm
our
too
CEO
loud,
doesn't
I have an
an
office.
So I'm hearing a theme of change throughout the day and really being
Absolutely.
dynamic and flexible.
Yeah.
Another question I had, because we have a lot of young alumni here, how has your career sort of taken a turn? We don't always end up exactly where we planned, and those are usually happy coincidences. Anyone want to share how they ended up in a different place than they thought when they graduated? Anyone
Start?
jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, do the reverse.
I actually graduated out of the retail marketing program, and now I'm at an ad agency, so I kind of did a flip. But I started working corporate retail. I worked for Crate & Barrel for a few years, and I worked for Wayfair for a few years. Both was excellent, but I got into the ad agency world through a friend actually that knew me on a personal level and said your personality would actually fit in great in the ad agency space. I think you should apply. So I did a flip, but I started back over too. I went back to entry level after a few years. So definitely not where I thought I was going to end up when I finished, but
No regrets?
worked out. Yeah.
Everything worked out?
Yeah.
Seems like it's going well for you.
Yeah.
How about you, Rob?
Yeah, so when I was at Johnson Wales, I was in the graphic design and digital media program in school technology, but I worked in the dean's office. So the first time I ever met you, I think you actually walked in and you were like, would it kill you to take an iron to that shirt? So I ironed this morning.
You went to the dry cleaner this morning?
And I think you were also, weren't you a tutor for the technology in the ad lab?
A shooter?
A tutor. Someone that helped us.
Yeah,
with
troubleshooter.
exams.
That's actually how I got over, yeah.
Right.
But
and once
that,
we
you
knew
know-
how talented Rob was, we pulled him over to the
Well,
advertising.
I don't know about talented, but I knew how to use Photoshop. So they got me involved with that. And since then, I've worked in video games. The video game studio I was at folded after a year. In that time, I applied as an intern at Hill Holiday, the place where I currently lead a team, and I did not get it. So I was sort of vengeful and sort of really wanted it, and now I lead that team.
That's
cool.
Yeah, it's sort of a fun story. So, you know, it takes leaps and turns, but you know, you keep at it, and you know, you make it work.
So I went to Johnson Wales in 1977, undergraduate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, so I'm the old man. But I went because I was going to go to culinary hospitality school. I was going to go to both, so that's what brought me there. That's what brought me there, and you know, SOC was there. You know, a bunch of really great culinary, you know, kind of legends that were there. I was kind of fast tracking on hospitality. Did my first internship at the Marriott on Orm Street in Providence. Anybody know it? I absolutely hated that experience so much. I traded my program to business like the next day or two or whatever. I don't know. It just wasn't going right. I'm like, this is not going to be for me, whatever. But I graduated with marketing and advertising and accounting minor and culinary, you know, so like I had this really mixed bag. So as, you know, some of the people close to me, I know chefs for 35, 40 years now that I work with on a continuous basis, and have several that are on retainer for business for me for my food marketing accounts. So it was there for a purpose. I guess I just didn't know it and kind of married all of that together. But you won't catch me running a hotel, I guess.
When I graduated college, I was pretty gung-ho about working in the music industry. I mentioned that one of my things that I love is live music. However, when I ran away from Providence to move back to San Diego to get out of the snow, biotech was a huge industry, and I needed to get a job. And so I landed a job as a marketing coordinator for a biotech company, and I had worked there. I worked at a couple more companies, and then I decided I wanted to completely veer over and work for the tech side of things. So for a number of years, I worked at these companies that had this really personal sort of a social responsibility that you're working towards, and it creates a lot of passion and meaning for what you're doing. And then you go and work for just a pure play tech company. I lost my sense of belonging in many ways, and I stuck it out. I finished the job that I went to that company to do, and then I went running straight back to the genomic space. And so with that though, even though it was this veer sort of to the right and working for a company where I didn't have that meaningful passion as much every day, I learned so much on the tech side of marketing and modern marketing that I was able to bring back to the genetics space. So sometimes you take these turns and you're not loving it every single day, but at the end of the day, it all works out for you.
Well, I can speak to that. I'm a teacher, and I started out in advertising. It was actually, it was a faculty that asked me to come in and be a guest speaker. And then I was an adjunct, and then I was a teacher. So once you find something that gives you some purpose, right, that's where you're going to, and sometimes you get that passion as a student, and other times it develops later. One of the things that we have noticed changing in the industry is the use of analytics in really every space. Does anyone want to talk about, Chris, maybe you want to talk about how that change has happened over the years and the importance of analytics today?
What's interesting is I've been in marketing and advertising for a long time now, 35 years, give or take, and the majority was on the client side. So with Dunkin' Brands, International, National, with Honeywell, as well as LA Signal, which, when I worked for LA Signal, had 96,000 employees, Fortune 30. So, giant corporations. And the interesting thing is you would go spend millions of dollars doing something, and because some CEO liked it or had an interest in sailing or tennis or whatever it is, and you just go do it because they said it. That is so changed because everybody is so accountable on so many different levels, whether president to a board, or a board, or the president, or the C-suite to shareholders and Wall Street and whatever. So everything's so much more measurable now. That you have to do certain things for awareness building, things like that. But even when you're doing those types of things, people want KPIs and measurements and return on investment, all measured. And so everybody's got a dashboard. I don't care what department you are these days, whether it's media or technology or accounts or doesn't matter the industry. There's a dashboard because no one has patience to read anything. So you have all these brand managers that get all of these great velocity reports if you're in the grocery trades, for example, and they'll be like 1,000 pages. You drill down to every store, to every hour, to every day part. And no one has the patience to read them. There's some accounting marketing clerk that's doing that, but for the most part, all executives want, in 10 minutes, tell me what the hell it is. And so there's all these very cool dashboards that have a lot of visuals and pie charts and bar charts and all that stuff that say how we're doing. And, I think all of us would say that, clients want results and they want measurements so they can actually talk intelligently to their respective, whomevers. But it's
It's
changed.
great to have all of that data,
Yeah.
but now the expectations are higher.
Yeah, I would say no matter what your business, is, industry, or even if you're marketing or, different kind of industry capacities, you need the analytics, you need the technology, So I work, it's funny, so in the area that I work with, like event marketing and experiential and building pop-up stores and tours and all this stuff, I'm the one kind of department that does face-to-face marketing or face-to-face engagement, whether it's B2B or consumer, every day. But I'm the biggest user of technology with my chief technologist in my company because we're always measuring things. And even if someone's not filling out something on an iPad or whatever, we're measuring kinetic energy, how many footsteps. We're measuring eyeballs on a retail shelf. I mean, all these types of things that then get fed into a dashboard, even if a person didn't say something, but we saw their action.
Right.
Because that's important to you,
Absolutely. And to that point, I would say that one of my first jobs out of college was to spend $3 million a year on print advertising. And the way that my life operates today as a head of marketing is I'm accountable to our organization for a % of the net new pipeline going in for our sales team because of the data analytics, because we can track everything that he was just talking about in terms of information coming into the systems. We can track the return on investments of campaigns that we're doing. My core objective, one of them, is a certain percentage of new pipeline going in for the sales team, and that never existed before. And many marketing leaders aren't actually comfortable with it these days, and if they're not comfortable with it, it means that they're not leveraging all the data that's at their fingertips, because you can literally track everything.
Now, Ashley, we spoke once about how you're right in the epicenter of using that data, and how clients can really make your life difficult with their demands. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so essentially what my team is responsible for is executing on the digital media plan. So with that comes, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but that has to be implemented correctly and according to the measurement plan long term. So when I'm looking at a media plan and a measurement plan and all of the KPIs, it's essentially putting all the pieces together and making sure that it's going to be trackable from beginning to end. And I will say, my team solely focuses on digital and social, so it's all trackable. But not to say that when we're reviewing a media plan that our clients don't care about being able to measure everything. So we talk about out of home, we talk about print, everything that goes into that. But it can be a lot of pressure. I mean, I've kind of like let that go over the years, but having to understand that there are going to be hiccups in the process, and there are going to be oversights, and having to deal with delivering that news to clients, that happens quite a bit. So even though everything is trackable, it might not be trackable in the right format or executed in the correct manner, or they might not get the result that they were hoping for, that we overpromised them, or so because there's so much data, it can be a blessing, but it also can be a huge curse.
The other thing too, which you maybe could talk about, is just the dilemma, because you're heading up digital and social. We are caught a lot of times with the credibility of the research tools that are out there.
Yeah.
So there are agencies that are deleting Nielsen, for example, because it's not the best. Yeah, and we have just done it also. So we are getting away from Nielsen ratings and all those types of things because it's not credible anymore.
Right.
Or if we want to talk about social, like influencers, how many people are actually really influencing? So
And
really
can
a
you
problem
trust
in
those
our
platforms?
and can you trust the
Yeah.
platforms and so you almost have to test the test, and the dashboard gets very
Rob, I
complicated.
thought maybe you could speak to the creative aspect of advertising, which is why a lot of us get
Oh,
into
I
it.
can do that.
And how creative is just sort of micromanaged and
Sure.
analyzed.
Well, just the one thing that I will say on data, and then sort of translate or transition to the next question. Like, it's one thing to have a dashboard, but it's like one thing to like tell a story about that dashboard. So like, is the bounce rate on your website really high because the experience sucks, or because people get the information they need and they get it quickly and then they leave? So there's an important part
And
about
then where they're leaving too.
A little
Right,
knowledge
yeah,
is a
sure.
vendor's thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So it's being able to have that knowledge and being able to sort of not spin the story, but like, oh, we didn't get the result we wanted, but we learned this.
No, working on
And-
agency, you spend.
You spin.
You spend.
You spin. But in terms of creative, and I have a lot of friends that work in analytics and stuff, and a lot of that comes into the brief. When we're targeting different demographics or experiencing like how to use these different platforms, we're able to use that data to sort of migrate into creative solutions. So it's cool to see at the beginning of the campaign, but it definitely executes all the way throughout.
Yeah, and the conversion rates and just all of too much data can really get you mired down in the numbers, but still good creative sells and
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
important
it's
for
not
the
like
customer experience.
like we all just saw the Super Bowl. Like how many of us cried during Google's spot?
Sure, yeah.
Like, is that a measurable KPI? Like, how many people cried? No, but I know that.
But how many people shared it is.
How many people
Talk
Right.
about it
Exactly.
afterwards.
Right. One aspect of data and having so much data is discerning what to use and when you're going to infringe on personal privacy. Has that been an issue at any of your companies? Maybe with medical data, Jenny, you could talk about that.
Sure. So one of the things that we do at Seven Bridges is we enable researchers to use genomic information to inform new drug development. And there are massive policies, compliance, security measures in place to make sure that individuals' most personal information is not identifiable. And so we have a chief information and security officer that manages a lot of the product compliance side of thing. But then even on the marketing side of things, I want to make sure that we can tell a story from data and unstructured data to how that becomes humanized into things, and making sure that we're following all the compliance laws that we need to do on our side, because Big Pharma is looking at us across the board to make sure that not just our product is compliant, but we're compliant as a company.
Anybody else have experiences with the privacy issues associated with data, or do you have personal responsibility for it?
I actually have personal responsibility for legal compliance, but this would be not on that side, but it would be on data that is obtained through the different programs. So one of our big clients is Blue Cross Blue Shield in multiple states, so there's so many HIPAA laws and things like that that we cannot share or whatever. There's, when you're building apps and things like that on, what you can share, you can even say. Then you get into, can you refer a doctor or not? And if not, then, it gets complicated. And then on the simplistic side of like sales promotion part of marketing, having a sweepstakes winner, what do you do with that data? Now you have a legal waiver and affidavit that basically waives, if you want to be the grand prize winner of that car or cash prize or whatever it is, you waive your right, so that way the brand can do publicity, etc. But in some states that's not enough. So it just,
It's
California, for
complicated,
example.
yeah.
So it is complicated and getting more expensive. And then the key is, where do you store that data? And how do you store it? And is it encrypted?
Right.
And is it to code? So it becomes a big initiative.
Data, it's good, but now
It's great, it's
a lot.
complicated.
It's
It's got to be
complicated
handled
friend to have.
correctly.
I actually had a scenario come up recently where we attended a conference, and the conference was in the UK, and we were a key sponsor, so we had a keynote presentation. We were guaranteed the leads of everybody that attended the keynote presentation, in addition to another side presentation that they call a live lounge presentation, which is in the middle of the exhibit hall floor. And we do our typical marketing things. We follow up with an email to everybody that we were given the information on, because we were told by the organizers that they were doing the due diligence around the GDPR compliance. I received an email from somebody that was on our email list that asked the questions: how did you receive my information? I need to talk to your data protection officer, and so on. Alerted HubSpot that we were improperly using their information even. And so I had to bring in my legal team. We had to do our own due diligence and make sure that we weren't sort of being outside of the compliance regulations, and come to find out that it was the conference organizer that was not in compliance. And so even though you're doing everything that you can, there are these instances that come up at times due to data protection.
Yeah. Rob, do you run into that in your position?
Yeah, all the time. So I mentioned that Hill Holiday, we have a bunch of retail clients, but we also have a bunch of healthcare clients. So we represent Janssen and Novartis and a bunch of others. And one of the things that's been a trend lately is this whole idea of branded campaigns and unbranded campaigns.
Yeah.
So with branded campaigns, as soon as you show the logo or the name of your drug, you got to show ISI or important safety information. You have to disclose all the different things that this drug can mess you up. And that certainly inhibits creativity.
Or you could die.
Or you could die, or grow a third
Exactly.
arm. Who
Yeah,
knows?
all that good stuff.
So not a way that you get around that, but sort of a way that you can skirt through that is this whole idea of an unbranded campaign. So it's sort of this idea that a rising tide raises all boats. So for Novartis, one of our clients is Cosentix. We just launched this campaign called Monster Pain in the AS, where AS stands for ankylosing spondylitis. And that's sort of a way that we could show all the creativity and find a doctor without having to disclose all of that legal information and everything. And then the idea is that as soon as you go to a doctor, the doctor's just going to refer you to our drug or their drug of choice.
And if it was a print ad, it would be the print ad creative and in 7 pages of black and white legal
Yeah,
disclaimer.
or one giant fold out.
Or one giant fold out
that's
that's 54 pages.
Yeah, well, which is really nice about digital for
No,
sure.
I know.
You can do some of that stuff.
Exactly.
Ashley, do you have responsibility attached to your role? Or
So
in
I do
your
and I
department?
don't. So I have to understand GDPR, all the compliances that go along with that. I have to understand any privacy regulations that are going to be coming down in the States, which is definitely soon to come. So I have to be aware of what our tech limitations are going to be and how our measurement plans might have to change. But because I'm not an attorney, it kind of puts me in a sweet spot that our agency isn't able to provide. Like, we're literally barred from giving any advice or trying to sway the client a certain way. They have to consult their own legal team and tell us how they would like to proceed. So it kind of puts us in a sweet spot where, you know, I have to be educated and understand when they come to me with a plan on how they're going to proceed, that I have to know exactly how to execute on that.
It's good to have a limit to what you, because all of us are expected to become experts, and it's constantly changing. So for some of our new alums, we have a data specialization. Now we think our students take all of this. I wish I could have your story for my predictive analytics class, how important it is. But I still want to have a little time to talk about the people side of things and development, because people are also important. And if you have any programs where you're just developing diverse people and more inclusive environments, programs where you can develop leadership for women and minorities, things like that, I think are finally starting to take hold in corporate America. And if you have any of that experience you could share.
I can start. Working in the biotech industry, there is a lack of women in leadership. And one of the things that we're currently doing at Seven Bridges is taking a look at women in leadership. A large portion of our team members are actually in Belgrade, Serbia. And we have an office here in Boston, and we have an office in San Francisco. So how do we bring the women together and promote leadership and teach leadership skills, but also bring us together across different cultures and geographies? And that's something that we're going to be looking at in the next few months.
Nice. Everybody else have something at their organization?
We actually have a client, CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion.
Okay.
It's actually a nonprofit backed and founded by the founder and CEO of PwC. So it's got some nice backing to it. I would encourage anyone looking for a job, whether it's new one or, you know, back to the market, to probably go check out the member signatory companies that have signed a pledge for diversity and inclusion. There's, I think, about 1,000 corporations there that go out of their way for helping people, not because of race or color or sexual persuasion, but if you're blind or if you're deaf, and all of the, I think, 7 or 10, you know, different classifications of diversity and inclusion. So that would be one thing that I would do. We actually have quite a few programs for everything from internships to actual jobs based on different programs.
Internships, we like to hear that. Might have a few
No, we have,
hospitals in
yeah,
the
we have
audience
a lot.
for you.
Sure.
How about Bill Holiday?
Yeah, I'll actually just back up and say like why diversity and inclusion is so important to us. Because in advertising, and this panel actually isn't even like a good reflection of diversity that we probably have. But it's so important that us as messengers, you know, we're able to speak with the audiences that we're targeting. I actually have a recent example from Hill Holiday that I sort of like to use, and sort of why I think it's so important. But for Dunkin' Donuts, one of the things that we did for their home coffee that you can buy in grocery stores was this whole idea of your home runs on Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Your home could run on Dunkin'. So we built a tiny home where all the electricity was generated from coffee grinds. So you would have coffee, you would convert it into energy. The headline that we got from Ad Age was that Hill Holiday builds a house that isn't wheelchair accessible, which is really crappy. And all of us were so nearsighted, and we're building this awesome home, and there's 2 steps going up to it.
Should have asked me, because I would have told
And
you to
that's
make it
saying, you know,
just my department.
having diverse teams there and included is part of it, and that's, you know, me as a cis white dude, you know, I only know what I know, and having diverse teams is really important to that. So I will just say that's why it's so important to have diverse teams.
We've actually built displays for brands that have to have, you know, a lot of sound for, you know, for blind, and braille for blind. So depends on the brand and what they stand for, but that has increased. So.
And we've heard from employers that they're looking for graduates who can see beyond their own boundaries and have an ability to work with diverse people whose ideas are different than ours. Right? We're a very polarized society, and but creativity really is enhanced with people from all different points of views and cultures. Ashley, did you want to add anything to that, your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I feel fortunate because the agencies and all the workplaces I've worked at have made this an initiative, and I feel like that's the time that we're living in right now. So I feel like I hear about initiatives all the time. I know right now our agency is focusing on Black History Month. There's something every month that that they raise awareness of, and our recruiting team is relatively small, and they focus on that. We hear it every month at town hall, the types of talent that they've recently hired, the ones that they're looking for. So I think that they're making it their mission and they're making it publicly known. So that always makes me feel good, but I feel fortunate because I've never really felt like it's been an issue anywhere I've worked.
All right, so steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to share any personal reasons why you came here tonight, why you felt that coming here and sharing your stories and perhaps being a mentor or offering advice was something you thought was important to do? Jenny, you want to?
Sure. I was going to let us start down there since I've been
okay.
starting along, but I'll go down. I just got called out by the teacher. It's okay.
You're self-starting.
That's the way they asked me, I guess.
For me, I'm a first-generation college graduate. Nobody in my family had actually graduated college before me, and the last 20 years I have been heads down focused on my career and achieving a lot of the goals that I had set out for myself. And one of the things that I'm focused on this year is giving back. And how do I help others navigate the complexity of getting started in their career? As a first-generation college student, nobody had worked in an office in my family. And so if I knew then what I know now of being able to network and be able to do internships and working in an office and just being able to go into an office. I never went into an office until my very first job. I didn't even do an internship inside of an office. And so for me, this is the time of being able to help others and give back on things that I've learned along the way.
Nice, thank you. Anyone else want to share a personal motivation coming tonight?
So in 1980, when I graduated, I was surprised at graduation. Yeah, I know, right? 1980. You weren't born.
I was too.
Oh, you were too. I had this guy named Mo Gaby that I won during commencement. I won the Gaby President's Trophy that year, so I'm the 1980 recipient. What I didn't understand after the graduation when Mo came up to me, who I knew pretty well, and went to school with John Bowen and all those guys, and he tapped me on the shoulder and he goes, "This is just the beginning. The President's Trophy is your invitation." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "You'll know." So for me, it was constantly, it was in the beginning being asked to either give opinions or give back. I think it's great to give back at various points, and I've come in and out of the college and university during, the decades of whatever of doing that, including, 12 years of the president being alumni president, stuff like that. But if you can give back and hear what's going on and contribute to helping someone network or yourself, you'll never know, because there are graduates of JWU that I do business with now that I never knew, but it was just because of either networking or someone that reached out or someone said, "Oh, you know this person? Let's have a coffee," and then all of a sudden, you're doing business with him or her or whatever. So it's great. It keeps you young, keeps you current.
Rob's still young, but what got you?
No, it does.
Rob?
So I'm terrified of public speaking. I didn't take the mandatory public speaking class until my senior year, because I was hoping that they would remove the requirement and I wouldn't have to take it. But there's this piece of advice that I got from this designer. Her name is Tina Roth Eisenberg, and she said, "If an opportunity scares you, you need to take it." So that's how you know it's good. So I progressively got better at public speaking and doing these types of things and just meeting new people and just sort of spreading knowledge. That's what brought me here tonight.
I've seen you on LinkedIn. You've done some panels, like
Yeah,
TED
I
Talk
hated it.
style. I'm like, wow.
But you have you have ideas, you want to get them out there, and sometimes you need to submit your proposal for your talk, and hopefully you get accepted. And if you don't, keep trying, write blogs, talk to people, and all that stuff. Thanks.
And actually, you keep coming back and doing so much for us, and I'm always impressed that you keep saying yes. So tell me, what's the secret? What's the secret? What's motivating you?
I think, well, I've kept close contact with quite a few faculty members, so that's kind of kept me on my toes, where they always want updates, so I feel like I always have to have something to tell them. But it's nice that I've kept in contact with them because when I needed to hire in recent months, it's come full circle because now I have alumni that are new hires on my team. So it helped me out. So
and you know they're well trained.
Exactly. No, exactly. So that was one of the bigger reasons for tonight. Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up and go to questions, but before we do, one last fun thing. You go back in time and talk to your 20-year-old self in college. What advice would you give yourself? You have a time machine.
I can go first this time.
You want to go?
To not make emotional decisions.
Okay.
Mine would be to know your worth. You know, coming in as a junior, you might not think you have a lot to bring to the table, but you certainly do. It goes back to those fresh perspectives and everything, and especially taking advantage of the time you can while you're a junior to find a mentor, to find someone to learn from. That's one thing that I wish I sort of focused on. I was sort of bullish and was like, I can do this on my own. And you burn yourself out. You honestly do. So, you know, knowing your worth and finding a mentor when you can, I think is really important.
I would say two things. One would be get to know your dorm proctor really well and know what motivates he or she. No, but seriously, I think what I would tell people is be relentless on getting whatever your field is that you think may be, and it may change just like it did for me. But I was adamant about getting part-time work, volunteer work, and internships in the field of study. So I worked 3 years in an ad agency while I went to school. So by the time I graduated, I got an advertising marketing management job literally like 2 months after graduation, and then went from there. So for me, I had already had, you know, kind of 3 years of 30 hours, 40 hours a week, depending, because back then we had Fridays. I guess you still have Fridays.
Maybe you should have had a little more fun.
Yeah, well, I had fun. I had fun. Maybe too much sometimes.
Jenny, any advice for your former self?
I wish I knew how to get over my imposter syndrome earlier. That was key for me, understanding that I have a seat at the table for a reason, and believing in my own confidence, and as Rob was saying, speaking up a bit. I didn't really know what imposter syndrome was. There was just this chip on my shoulder.
Oh, I still feel it. I still feel it
I
every day.
feel like I'm more confident with it in ways, and just I think getting comfortable with it.
Nice. Before we take questions, I'd like to thank our panelists. And we have 15 minutes, I think, for some questions. Who would like to throw a hand up in this classroom and go
Yes.
first? Sure.
Hi, thank you for the panel, is fantastic. Quick question, how many of you are entrepreneurs?
Started a nonprofit.
Well, I mean, as your full-time job
As
or
your full-time
plus?
job.
Oh, not my fault.
Okay, the reason why I ask is, first of all, my name is Andrew Liss, graduate class of '87, culinary arts. I had 2 jobs in my life I wanted. I wanted to be a chef, JWU. Secondly, I wanted to be an investment advisor. Well, I was truly a stockbroker, now I'm an investment advisor. The reason why I'm asking is that it seems that you folks are doing a fantastic job at promoting women and minorities, and I love that. I just want to say how proud I am of my firm called Strategies for Wealth, based out of New York City. We're at a 50% ratio of minorities and a 33% of females, and rising. I don't know how you folks feel. Johnson Wells to me was, okay, you're going to be a chef. Yeah, I've worked as a chef prior. Thank you very much. Davey was wonderful for that. Okay, we know that. The second part was the entrepreneurial spirit. This school was phenomenal about it, and it just, maybe I'm mixing the words, I don't know, but we just need to promote the school more and more. I've been invited back many times to talk in Providence. Is everybody a Providence graduate? I'm the best.
I'm gonna give you a card because we have brought back Shark Tank. Shark Tank is
Shark
the
Tank is
entrepreneurship.
fantastic.
Yep, so that is a contest for those of you that don't know, where students can pitch their own business
Yeah.
and they can win money to start up. And we invite alumni to come and be mentors.
And that's
I like
terrific,
that.
thank you. What I'm getting at is, and bear with me, I apologize, when I'm on a roll, I'll forget otherwise. But more importantly, is like, I'm here, I'm proud, I'm glad to be a Wildcat. But more
yay.
importantly, I just want to see the school grow more and more. And if anybody is looking for something else in life other than working 9 to 5, and make a lot of money, hell, I'm here for you.
That's the
Thank you
plug.
very much for your time.
Entrepreneurship is really important, but it also comes in different facets,
Yep.
right? So entrepreneurship could be you starting your own company, which is great. I commend you. It takes a lot of risk. However, it could also be working for a small startup and taking a risk and being in a small organization and being a part of that team that is gonna make it happen, whether you're gonna grow from 2 million to 5 million, or you're growing from 2 million to 10 million, or you're growing from 20 million, etc. I've worked for a variety size of organizations, but I work better on the side where it's you're growing an organization at a speedboat pace versus being on an aircraft carrier moving really slowly. So it's something to keep in mind, whether or not you're going to do it yourself or be on the startups.
And it also could be, you could be on board of directors of a company that you don't get paid for, but you have company stock of a startup, which I have, you know. So that could be your second gig or third gig, and then when they sell it, you cash out. So there are lots of opportunities like
A
that.
small start. I mean, it didn't go the way you hoped, but the experience.
Yeah, I went to
I'm
lunch
sure-
and I couldn't get back in.
But the experience is something that stays with you, right? All of
Yeah,
the
no, it does,
steps that
but
we take.
no, you're entirely right about the entrepreneurial spirit at Johnson Wales. They just empower you to do so much, whether it's DECA or Ad Team or what have you. You know, they just give you those opportunities. And, you know, the best advice I can give is, you know, to just take them.
Yep.
Okay, amazing. Other questions? Yes.
I have a question on motivation because I realize in this day and age a lot of people seem to lack motivation because a lot of things change, a lot of people tell you different things, they have their own opinion on how you're supposed to go about things. So how do you keep your motivation? Like what drives you to do what you do?
I mean, I'm the youngest person I could start.
Yeah.
So like when I got into this business, mobile wasn't a thing. iPhones didn't exist. And then in the time I went to school and all that, you know, everything went from desktop first to mobile first, all that kind of stuff. So you had to completely relearn. There were no computers when he started. I wanted to go first.
We had Wang word processors at JWU.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wang.
Very nice.
That's what we had.
So you know, it's not a matter of what you know; it's what you can learn
No cell phones.
and what you can adapt to. So like when I started, you know, I was learning like ActionScript, and that's a programming language that doesn't even exist anymore. So it's being able to sort of adapt and sort of, you know, not knowing everything in the room, but knowing that you can learn it, I think is what keeps me going.
I would say, like, talking about JWU students overall, I mean, and I've worked with and been involved with multiple campuses for a long time. The one kind of common denominator is that you see often is that JWU students are motivated. They seem to be independent-minded, whether it's entrepreneurial or whatever they are, you know, all about. But there does seem to be some type of inert drive, whether that's first generation, whether it's third generation, whatever. That seems to be different.
And resourcefulness. We try
Yeah,
to
you
build
know,
that into,
you know,
you'll figure it out. Like Rob said, you may not have the answer, but confidence and not feeling that imposter syndrome, right? To figure it out.
You know, and an example of JWU a couple of years ago when they won the student advertising competition nationally.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was part of Oscar's, like, mentoring kind of the students during that one. And they came up here, you know, they beat Harvard, they beat all the other schools, Northeastern, and they kicked ass. And it was great. It was, you know, and all of my Harvard co-workers and all my, you know, Northeasterners and everybody else, and I was the one, you know, JW guy, and, you know, kind of rubbed it in their face for a change. It was nice, you know. But yeah, you got it. So I think some of it is I think it's some of the makeup of who goes to the school, or what attracts maybe us to the school, initially at least. You know, it's not for everybody. But I think from a motivation standpoint, I think a lot of JWU alum and students tend to be self-motivating or have a little bit more of a competitive edge than perhaps their peers of the same age.
Sometimes
That's
we
what
call
it seems.
Grit, you know?
It's
and,
grit, it's
and,
what.
you guys know that I'm the DECA advisor at Johnson Wales.
Love DECA.
But DECA high schools have
Oh, yeah.
students that are already learning by doing and kind of rolling up your sleeves and getting that confidence. So if you can carry that motivation into the workplace, you know, you've just graduated and you're looking for opportunities, so motivate yourself. You're not going to have a teacher pushing you, but give yourself some homework. Do some research on LinkedIn for, you know, where would your dream job be? And
And be
congrats for
humble.
coming because you came tonight, and that's a step in motivating yourself. Any other new graduates that are before I
Bet
take
you're a
them?
new graduate.
But again, that first networking event is that first step, so you have to keep it up, and you have to make that part of your professional life. Sorry, you had a question?
Not a new graduate. Is anybody doing any volunteer work?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot.
Like?
So I live in East Boston, actually, and one of the things that I love about East Boston, when I was driving around the neighborhood looking for a place to live, there was this approximately 15-year-old male on the corner with a speaker and a microphone singing. He was rapping. And that, given everything I've already talked about tonight with music, I decided that was going to be the neighborhood that I was going to live in. And so I've gotten involved with the organization Zoomix, who teaches music to at-risk youth and sit on the board at their annual gala.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors of a 501(c) organization called World Ocean School, based here in Boston as well as St. Croix. They offer experiential education to at-risk youth aboard a 130-foot wooden schooner, the Roseway. So you see it out in the harbor.
You see it in the
It's
harbor.
beautiful orange
Yeah,
sails.
we're right in Seaport, yeah.
Roseway sails, yeah.
Yeah.
So you bring kids on board, it teaches them skills that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So access to community, being part of the team, all that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing to be part of and to give back to. And a lot of those students that go on the Roseway end up going on to college like tenfold more than if they had not been exposed to it. And those numbers aren't real. I don't have them on the top of my head, but it is really nice to be part of. And I got involved through that, through a very similar way to World Ocean School. Just like they asked for help with their website, and now I run a bunch of their stuff. So it's just great to be a part of, for sure.
I'm on the board of Rhode Island Foster Forward, which is foster care for Rhode Island. So I do everything from, I'm the guy running their gala every year with them to, helping them run their, storefront for foster parents in Rhode Island. That the kids and the parents come and get everything from diapers to used clothes to, cribs and everything else. And so I do that, and then I actually do Holy Trinity Food Pantry. So I help with all the food-related things that I get and do. I'm on their board and wind up getting the food to feed Northern Rhode Island families in need. So those are two that I do.
And I can say that Johnson & Wales really tries to bring in nonprofits into the classroom. Myself are in advertising classes. But one quick story, Higher Ground International was a startup helping Liberian refugees. 12 years ago, came into my PR class with just an idea and a website. I'm on the board, best friends with the founder, and we've grown tenfold. So we like to put that spirit of giving into our students, and it's important for me as an advertising professor that we're not just selling beer and potato chips and sometimes drugs. We can also sell
Drugs that help people.
drugs that help. We can also, take those same skills and give back and
It's
help.
about balance.
Exactly, and finding some joy in different aspects of your life. Other questions from our audience? Yes, April.
So I work in the manufacturing industry, and the revolution of digitalization has been huge. How has that affected what you guys do today? Like, I know artificial intelligence and things like that have really affected what you do, but in the advertising world, how is that contributing to what you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Sounds like you.
Sure. So there's AI and then there's ML or machine learning, which is 90% of the time that's usually what we're talking about, and that's usually just automating tasks that we would do a lot. And it's certainly not had a hindrance, but it's certainly evolved sort of our industry in terms of like we're not doing these mundane tasks anymore. We're able to focus on the things that really matter and sort of evolve our thinking. So in the same way that the assembly line automated automobiles in the 1920s, the same way that AI and machine learning is going to sort of evolve our capacity to do more creative things and less mundane tasks. That's at least me on the creative side. I don't know if Boss is doing anything in sort of that space.
It's hard because, right now I'm only focused on one client. But I know at my previous agency, VR was a huge focus, just because the clients there were super interested in doing something cool and putting that on their website, and having a VR experience when you got to their landing page. So I've seen a little bit of it, but I think at least in the agencies I've worked at and with the clients I've worked with, I think we're just starting to dip our toes in it. And mainly because I work on a financial brand, they're not the biggest risk takers. So I can't say I'll ever be able to do anything super cool as long as I'm working on this client. But it's good to know that, what other advertisers are doing and working towards, because eventually I'll be working with or partnering with somebody else.
I would add on the machine learning. One of my accounts is Toyota Material Handling, so it's a pretty large international company, and they work with everything to do in manufacturing and distribution of material handling and certain processes in manufacturing. And I would say from my perspective, the biggest change is not just the mundane everyday tasks, so then you could spend labor dollars on the more complicated ones, or that you need more persona on. It's probably equal to that, because that's certainly pivotal, but is I would say just the liability aspect of manufacturing and injury law and claims against workman's comp, or having someone lose an arm in a manufacturing work accident or things of that nature, or working with chemicals, or things of that, making a drug or something like that. So we see a lot more digitalization, machine learning being done to minimize legal risk to the brand, as well as just minimize the workman's comp policy premiums in some of these ways. So that's the legal side of that equation. The same thing I would say is there's a huge need, because I hear it from at least half a dozen clients. Most high school graduates, most college graduates cannot read a blueprint. Absolutely, positively do not have the basic math skills and can't read a blueprint. And I'm not talking about just the ones going to trade school. I'm talking about a college educated person that maybe had calc and some other stuff that cannot interpret, the basic advanced math that you need for manufacturing math. Something to take back, but that's a real need, because if you're in employment in a manufacturing, whatever, supervisor role, and you don't have the same skills that you're asking your people to have, you're going to run into trouble. So, big voids right now.
Let me just see if there's anybody else that we haven't heard from. All right, the last question. I think we're out of time for questions. So last one.
What do you think about future of marketing industry? And how do you think a U.S. market industry different from other countries? Like other developed countries like Japan or like Europe, like Germany? And also internally, is your company competitive comparing to your competitors? Like, how competitive do you feel in your field? Like
Domestically or international?
Domestically and internationally.
So I think the future of marketing is always staying ahead of your competition in many ways, but also sticking true to your core of what you guys are focused on. One example is in our industry, a lot of people use icons to represent things. They're using made-up imagery to represent their organization, and we are slowly rolling out an evolved brand for ourselves that takes unstructured data to structured data to the patient that I was saying before, which completely differentiates us from anybody in our industry. But the future for us is patients getting better drugs in their life to help treat their disease. And so the future of marketing is understanding your landscape, but staying true to your core of who you are as an organization and what your core values are also.
I want to introduce Lori Zapata. She's our Director of Alumni Relations at Johnson & Wales. She's hosting us tonight.
Yay, Lord.
Thank you so much for this wonderful panel. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Our wonderful moderator, Professor Rego, thank you so much. Michelle. I still feel like sometimes I'm in school, for sure. But Jennifer and Chris and Rob and Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us here. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. We know that life is busy, and so you've set aside the time, and we really greatly appreciate that, so thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here, coming out in what could have been torrential rain, so I'm glad we made it in prior to that. Thank you for all taking the risk tonight to be out in the rainy weather. Appreciate that. But certainly if it's your first time or whether you're regulars that come to all of our alumni events, thank you for supporting what we're doing here. As an alum myself, I am really proud to have heard this wonderful panel, and I'm really invigorated by hearing all the wonderful things that you're doing in your respective parts of your industry, and I hope that you are too, and that you feel the JWU pride tonight by listening to this wonderful panel. And so thank you again, and thank you to all of you. Our students are why we're here, right? Like, we were all in those seats. We all learned the same things. Our programs have developed exponentially since some of us were in school, for sure. I graduated in '95, so a lot of things have changed since then. But I'm really proud to walk in those halls every day and see our students and what they're accomplishing through their learning, and then to come back to events like this and hear about all the wonderful things that our alumni are contributing. There are definitely ways in which you can volunteer, and you can spend time with our students as well as with other alumni, so that way you can maybe have a mentoree relationship, mentee relationship, excuse me. There's a lot of tools and digital tools that we can utilize in order to make that happen, so please, I ask that you see myself or the wonderful Liza Gentile, who helped put this event on tonight. So thank you so much to you as well. And we'll be able to help you or direct you in the right direction. And then there's always opportunities for support. If you were really energized by tonight's presentation, imagine how our students feel when they hear information like this shared with them in their classroom or outside. So we'd really love to get you involved. And so we have a lot of great things coming up. This is not the one and only thing. Certainly we're in Boston tonight, but we travel to other cities as well to produce programming like this. Our biggest one coming up on campus is Reunion, and so I definitely encourage you to come back and participate in that. If you were part of DECA or any national student organization, we have some special programming for you. Or if you were part of a fraternity or sorority, we have some special programming for you. But it is open to all alumni, so talk with us. We'll happily share that information with you. And thanks again for coming. I don't want to stand in the way between you and the bar or you and the food any longer. I think we've all held in there, so thank you. And thanks again for coming out. Enjoy the rest of the evening.